But when you are not treated with respect and equality, the boundary was, and the self-esteem is very low usually, and then the boundary was damaged because a lot of times you couldn't confront that.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Current Art Podcast. And last week we talked about making mistake in Chinese education system. And this week we are continuing this topic with Xiaoer and continuing to talk about why in this generation we have the broken boundaries. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Current Art Podcast. I'm Yaching. Today, I'm at an artist studio in Berlin Hirschgarten with Xiaoer. Xiaoer, could
Hello.
you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Xiaoer. I'm a freelance and artist, currently live in Berlin for 7 years already. So this is my studio where I create my art.
I'm so happy to talk with you about a very exciting topic, which is about mistake. And it's so relatable, but it's very, very harsh in some culture than others. So stay tuned.
Partner that you ever together with, that your mom was satisfied with, is like if she was like picking every individual.
Ooh.
Oh, this is not good. Oh, that is not good. Oh, this is, oh no.
I think, yeah, that's a good question.
He's too old. He is too poor. Oh, this one is not good job. This one is every mistake.
I guess suppose I shouldn't ask my mom's opinion on dating.
Okay.
But sometimes I'm also insecure. Is this the right person or not? So I asked. That my mom is always very sharp. She can see it. Why it's wrong? What's going on? Okay. And then sometimes she's right. Because I think under this kind of family situation, I did grow up not knowing myself very well. I did growing up thinking I could always be better. I could always do better and act better, perform better. And this is not good enough. And I think when you have this kind of mindset, when you're scared of making mistake, when you don't own the mistake, and gives other people the opportunities to hurt you. Yeah. But nobody would perfect human being a possible thing to have in the whole society now. We never learned how to own the mistake. To say, fuck it, I made a mistake. This is just me. I'm just a mistake.
I think we are just we didn't found that education when we was a kid. How we grow up, we couldn't be able to accept that we have the mistake without guilt. Because I think our East Asian education, it gave us a lot of guilt, and they use the guilt to manipulate us and to shape us in the way how the society wanted. And we carry this trauma so deeply inside us. So right now, no matter where we are living, we can live in the society that men and women have more equal rights, for example. But still, that deep guilt, it's inside us that it's really hardly to get free.
What would be the most healthy way to looking at mistake?
This is the good question. What would be the healthiest way that you can imagine to look at a mistake?
Why I think this question is important is I think especially as female growing up in East Asia country, this guilt is heavier even.
Yes.
Because you are not trained to take adventure. You are trained, I think it might offend a lot of people, but you are trained to live in the system. I'm not saying you're trained to obey people, but you're trained to perform your best performance in the system.
Yes, it's true.
And we are not trained to be entrepreneur. We are not trained to be adventurer. And then I think it's hard to ignore there is a human history, Homo sapien history of this biology development that female were lived in the tribe or lived in the domestic situation. So we have to do something that is radical to really change that.
So that means we have to pay even more bigger price and effort to change.
I do think so.
Yeah.
I do think so. Like how many times that you feel like you're full of guilt. That how many times that in your life that you feel this is hopeless and I made such a mistake and I could not like even perform because I just felt like nothing can be changed because I destroyed everything.
Yeah. I think from this perspective, I think about the opposite of carry that guilt, which is entitlement. You know, sometimes I had in some situations, I was able to be like, wow, how can this person be so entitled to such a situation? Maybe we just make a small mistake, and this mistake is not the horrible mistake. It's not you destroyed something. I was analyzing the life situation that a lot of times, like why different genders and from different cultural backgrounds, if we all make the same mistake, but the reactions why can be so different? Why it's so different? Some people have less guilt, some people have more guilt, some people are more entitled, some people are less. Like the confidence level, yeah.
In Asian countries specifically, there's this group pressure, right?
Yeah.
If you have done anything that is a little bit different than the group, then the group will be influenced by you.
Yes.
In a bad way only.
Yeah, in a bad way to make it worse.
That's a very interesting assumption that it's assumed that your bad, like not saying that it's really bad, but quote unquote bad behavior could destroy everything. Do you remember there's one quote like in Chinese, it said one little flies could make the whole soup like gone bad.
Yeah, I understand and remember that sentence.
一只苍蝇
叫搞坏国汤.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that sentence was always repeated by my teacher because she always used this sentence to make the student in one of the student in the class, if this student have their own opinion about something which is not following the group, just too strong personality, it can be anything, but it could be positive or negative both. But the teacher always used this sentence to shout it down and, oh, you are too special and go back to the normal state, like to fit with everyone.
If you think about this, it's very interesting because at first the teacher assumed if you're doing anything different than anybody else, for example, asking a question, just like asking question why this letter spelled in that way or why this character is writing in this way, this kind of behavior could pin down your identity to a fly.
Yes.
So that's such a harsh judgment because harsh definition, like you did something different, you're a fly.
Yes.
And then what another assumption that the teacher made is like everybody else, they are pure.
Yeah.
They're like a soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? They're like a porridge, white porridge.
Yeah.
They are very pure. They never make mistake. So this is a very interesting like mental game that they're playing with us.
Yeah, it's a kind of manipulation game.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, everyone can make a mistake sooner or later in different ways, but then in this particularly seems, and to manipulate the target and to make this target give up his or her or their voice to becomes regular and to fit to the bigger picture. At this moment, the teacher can beautify the others Like maybe the other people also make a mistake.
Yeah.
But in order to make the target feel guilty, then the teacher used the game to beautify everybody else and to make the world completely white.
Yeah.
It's like to point out, okay, you are the only dirty thing there.
Fly.
So to make this psychological pressure that you have to give up by doing something.
I have another question. Do you think we can ever avoid making mistake? Like everything, forgetting your documents when you have appointment to extend your visa. I did that.
Okay.
Or, I don't know, being late at meetings, say wrong things to important person. I don't know, ruin your career opportunity by doing something like unreliable.
Yeah, I don't believe that we can avoid mistake because life is always going on and is always new experience, new challenges, new people comes to your life. You are going to face to a lot of different situations, a lot of first time situation at your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Some people at 50s still have to face to some situations that they never met in the last years of life. It's always going to be the new situation, and then how can you avoid mistake because of that? I think we can avoid or reduce the chance of the same mistake, but then it will be always the new mistake.
Yeah, even though we could be so clever, we learn all of our lessons. I think we learn from reputation, you know? We make same mistakes, say wrong things, fall in love with the wrong person, and then over and over, and it's really hard to avoid.
Yes, I think it's a very big question. It always depends on how important the things for you is. But I think, for example, fall in love with the same person, from this
Fall in love with the same person.
Fall in love with the same type of the person.
Same type,
for example, if this person hurt you in the past, and you know that you should avoid this type of the personality, but then once again you fall in love with the similar type of the people, and I think in this particular scene, it's not just about mistake, because this is a lot something to do with your subconscious.
Yeah.
And it's something to do with trauma bond. So although it could happen that consciously you study about psychology and you learn why that mistake was like that, you can avoid people to avoid similar trauma. But I think as long as the subconscious don't change, it will trigger the same repeat situations happen in the future.
What you are saying is very interesting about the subconscious.
Yeah.
Because you are saying if we treat the thing as a mistake, because mistake is you are doing something wrong, that you means that you know this is wrong.
Yes.
Or afterwards you know it's wrong. But I think life itself is so much messier. Like we are much more complicated, and even though we know, we fully aware, we are not. We are not.
Yes. I think so. A lot of times we just think that we are fully aware.
When we don't treat as a mistake, but treat as a experience, maybe it's easier.
Yeah. If you treat it as an experience, or if you treat it as an adventure, if you treat it as experiment, so no matter how do you call it, but not mistake.
But you know, this is a really big step for us, because maybe our listeners, they grew up in a different culture background. They think, wow, it's treated as an experience, treated as an experiment, so easy.
Yes, but it's easy to say.
Yeah, but it's not easy. It's not easy for somebody who growing up in a culture that a little mistake, the consequence is just harsh punishment. Yeah, it's a very big step.
I also have about punishment. I think about a question right now. I want to ask you about one question.
Yeah.
If you have ever met a situation here in Europe or in the US, the situation is you are talking about a childhood trauma to your friend, and your friend is not from Asia but from the different culture.
Lots of times.
And then this friend says, "Oh, but why you don't confront them? Why you don't confront? Why you didn't try to confront them?" So
Yeah.
did you make this kind of case?
Yes, I certainly do. Oh, you know what? I love talking about myself. That's why I'm having a podcast to talk about myself all the time. Just joking. But I think you're asking a very good question. Have I ever have a experience? Have I ever had a time other people ask me, why don't you do something at that time?
Why you don't just try to confront and try to say no and stand on your position?
Yeah, stand up to your own right.
Yes.
I
a lot, yeah.
But I don't think it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of things to combat this fear. Oh, I think it's so traumatized. Some part of my brain,
yes,
growing up in this way, I couldn't even feel it. I couldn't even feel that thing was wrong. Unfortunately, that's what I'm telling you about very beginning when we started this conversation. It's like I have a very bad receptor of stress. I don't perceive stress very well. If something makes me uncomfortable, it takes me a long time to realize this thing is uncomfortable and this thing is actually harming me or hurting me. It takes me such a long time to know about it. But the damage actually has been done, and then I could not perceive it. It's not on your skin. It's something beneath your skin that you don't perceive it. It's dangerous in that way if you think about it.
Yeah, but don't you consider that, because I was trying to analyze this state of mind, I sometimes can relate it to this kind of situation. I consider that it's something to do with damaged boundaries. Because, for example, I was talking about my experience when I was traumatized by my teacher when I was in the kindergarten. That she just pulled me out from that bed and pushed me to the dark room and closed the door. It was not my choice, but my physical body was pushed by somebody else out of. I couldn't able to say no to that. I was just crying and nobody was able to give in support, and I couldn't confront her because it was different power dynamic. Because they were so young and forced to accept a lot of blame, guilt, punishment, traumas, and carry that to their own and internalize that. So I consider that it was a very, very big damage to the boundary. Because the normal boundary is when you grow up with the caretaker who respect you. If you say no, I don't like it, they respect and listen to you. So this is how, if you build the healthy boundary, because you was treated with respect and equality. But when you are not treated with respect and equality, that the boundary was, and the self-esteem is very low usually, and then the boundary was damaged because a lot of times you couldn't confront them. It was like very fragile boundary.
I think you are talking about something very important, because I think as a freelancer or as an artist, it's very, very important to have a boundary
Yeah.
to let people recognize your work and pay
the
deserve what you deserve to your work, and otherwise how could you survive, how could you make a living, how could you compete with all the people who already born with resources, and then what you're actually doing is actually you fight for your own right to exist in this market, to exist in this world, and then you have to be very, very confident about it. And sometimes when you're, as you said, when your boundary is damaged, you start not knowing what you deserve.
Yeah, that's the thing, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah, everything start to become very vague. It's not only career-wise. I think how you should be treated in the public space, how you're supposed to be treated with your friends, with personal relationship, with your parents, all those things could be so unclear.
It's always very blurry. Because, for example, like lack of boundary, it could also cause to the situation that in a public space, in a working space, some behavior that from other people are not so respectful.
Yeah.
But then for the person who is poor in boundary, they don't realize that this behave is disrespectful. Until they get so hurted, then they realize, but then it's too late.
Then it's too late, and it's not able to build up this respect in the group anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to act in the moment, behave in the moment, but this is something easier saying than done. And I find it very, very interesting because you're working a lot with glasses, with broken glasses. And this is always connect with some sort of like danger because it could be self-harm. And when we're talking about these boundaries, when the boundaries has been broken by other people or things happen that is irrespectful to you, that this harm is really great, and I mean great in the way it's great amount of harm. And it's but this glass is broken is something that is transparent. There's some sort of beauty inside, right?
Because it's transparent and everything is very clear.
Yeah, everything is very clear, and then it can really harm you in a way that you couldn't expect it. Something with that related to the boundaries, I find it very interesting. Do you ever have this self-harm motive in your art creation? Self-damage, self-destruction, or break your own boundaries before other people breaking it?
In the question in terms of performance art, for example, breaking my own boundary before other people breaking it, it's give me some feeling of security. Because, for example, I think I feel more secured in my performance, although some performance, because, for example, it was some moment I was smashing the glass bottles in the performance with different tools. It could be perceived as very bloody and dangerous as a viewer if you watch that. But from my perspective, I felt safe. The reason is because in the real world, I mean, like in the normal daily society, there's much more complicated dynamic, and you can get hurt by the people at any time without expectation or wanted. Because the rule of the human reaction, like the rule of the human relationship, of course you are empowered and you have the boundaries, but there's a lot of social dynamic and power dynamic included. So it's a lot of unexpectations inside.
You cannot predict.
Yeah, you cannot predict what can happen. You cannot predict what can have more power over you and use that power abuse, for example. But in my performance, I feel very safe, although it can visually look very dangerous because I am the person who make the rule. I am the person who deal with my body. It gives some safetyness.
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
like when you self-harm, you are in the control of how you harm yourself. But if you don't do it and if you let other people harm, it's different story because you have this, you don't know what they can do.
That's very interesting. Of course, that definitely reminds me of Abramovich's work. People are kind of afraid of this very dangerous act too, so they started to stand back, right?
Yeah,
Because
they can keep a distance.
Yeah.
They are like they naturally keep a distance.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of fear involved.
Yes.
You have done something that is unexpected, and then it's hard to deal with that information like right away as a viewer. Let's say you cannot define one thing that you have never seen right away. It takes time to process different information, to connect with this what you saw right now to different part of your memories, and then to give it a definition. So when people are still processing those informations in front of your work, they stuck.
They are stuck.
They stopped.
And this is also for the audience because they don't know what will happen. It's like something unpredictable for them. It's for me it's predictable because I'm the person who make that. So, but for them not. Then they are just not in the secure position.
Compare with a 20 years old you, what has changed about this very specific topic about mistake, like making a mistake, what has changed in you?
Like when I was 20 years old, I was still fighting with my trauma that I lived with my childhood and teenager that was traumatized by the system of education.
Yeah.
But by another side, I was very brave as well because I made a big decision to study abroad and to travel along to different countries, to use a lot of like couch surfing, blah blah car, poor traveling, like anything which are adventure for a lot of people. So I think when I was 20 years old, I was having the statement in my head always, as long as you are not dying, nothing is a big thing. That was my life statement when I was 20 years old. But now I think if I ask myself, do I still hold the same statement? I think no, not really. Because I think during 10 years, from 20 years old to 30 years old, I had also been through a lot of troubles because of my experiment and my very optimistic life attitude. I got a lot of I got a lot of hurt or damage because that I was not afraid to try things out. I was not afraid to make decisions or mistake, but that also brought me in a risk situation. Like some people may choose the safer way to do things. I chose the more risky way to do things, and then I thought, if I am not die, I can take mistake. But also, I think I was testing my strength as an experiment, like Abramovich was doing this thing with her audience for a performance. I think I had this attitude with my life. I play with my life. But right now, I don't think that nothing is a big thing if it's not about life or death. Because I think right now I'm definitely still very up to try things that potentially can make a mistake, but I think I am more calculated about the risk before doing things, because sometimes like one mistake can make you a lot of risk that you have to deal with it for wasting of energy and time just to solve that leftover things. And so right now I think I'm just more careful. I don't have obsession about things have to be perfect, but I am more careful about how much do I have to pay for the risk if I do make a mistake. So if it's in the range of the risk that I could afford, I would definitely try the experiment. But if it's like out of the budget, I could pay for the mistake. And then I would definitely be more careful. I think this is like a lesson with age.
Yeah.
I get more matured and old. I'm so sorry for that, my audience.
No.
because sometimes I think sometimes people are always saying like, oh, when I was young, I was like scared, and then with more life experience, I'm getting more brave. I think I am a bit like the opposite, because when I was young, I was very brave. I'm still brave, but I'm just more careful.
I think that's a very beautiful thing to say, because of you learned strategies from these 10 years, and then you still have a heart of like taking risk. That's great. I think people should always pay respect to that, because of living in another country for 10 years wasn't an easy decision. There are so many things that you give up. That you give up some sort of like privilege to have the first-hand resources, and that you have to start everything from zero.
Yeah,
it is a different system, it's a different language, that your brain is constantly doing the work, and it's impossible to not make a mistake. And then we will still be making mistakes even though we are so matured and so aged. But I think mistake is something that is so beautiful. That, because you think about that, how brave that you are, and seeing the world as if there's no harm. And yeah, I think this is, people also call it
naiveness.
Naive. But it's also a beautiful thing sometimes to look at the world as a adventure. I think it's something that
like
is
again, because sometimes really when you're like when you don't see the mistake in the conservative way, but if you see it in the experimental way, and then it's going to be giving you so much fun to explore, but also giving you so much pain to suffer if you make one mistake, because everything becomes not follows your expectations sometimes when you open yourself up. And yeah, like what I should say, because sometimes it hurts when like the risk of experiment can hurt very much out of your expectation, and when it's too much, I just took it like a game.
Yeah.
Because that's how I cope, because I couldn't take things too straight or too serious when you have the big heart, when you are open, and then you are going to receive so much judgment, hurt, harm, attack, and then if you take it so serious, it's going to be so tiring to live a life.
That is so true. I think we are so unique because of our mistake.
Yes.
We are different from each other because of our mistake, and the thing that we did is so wrong. And so what we did is so wrong. I think what are the consequences? They are, if you think really through what would be the consequences, there's no such a big consequences.
Maybe making a mistake is a choice, because sometimes like let's say if one person is really lack of experience and young, maybe just trying things, maybe this you can say it is naive, because this person doesn't know and try for the first time and without calculate the consequence, then it's naive. But I think we already know how much is the risk behind the trying of things. that can contain a lot of mistake, but if you still go for it, then it's not naive, but it's the decision. It's like the decision for accept the mistake if it happens.
And I think if we can own that before anybody else own our mistake, I think we are winning the game.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Then, yes.
if you ever have to make a mistake and then you know there's bad consequences, you own it before anybody else own it before you.
Yeah.
So we couldn't avoid mistake, and then we couldn't learn to avoid mistake, but we can learn how to own it. Yeah.
Yes, we can learn how to own it. Also, I found one thing is very important, because also when we make a decision, especially very brave decision, it's also going to face into a lot of challenge of people who surround us.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I am going to trying to open a company, for example, I never did that before, and it's a risk in front. It's a success, but it's a risk. But it could be a lot of mistake that will come in the future. And if you succeed in the end, of course, I think that's easier. But if you lose, it's going to be a lot of judgment. Like your parents can say, "Oh yeah, I knew that will happen. Oh, I knew that will happen." Like to say such a things to make you feel really bad about yourself. So I think to own the mistake, you also need a very, very brutal mindset that you can have a lot of strength to stay in being yourself and to trust your choice, the choice of the risk, no matter what the other people says when the bad situation happens.
You're right, and I think it's also very important that we know we go into the world, especially the art world, you're going to be hurted very bad.
It's like a jungle.
Yeah. So you're going to be hurted very bad, and there's going to be a lot of pain. So if you can know a little bit, a trailer of that, if you can watch a trailer, that would be helpful.
Yeah, trailer for the outward.
Yeah, and then you know the rule.
Yes.
And then you will still make mistake, and then you will still be hurt, and that's just the real life. That's just a reality. Yeah. Thank you so much, Xiaoer. Thank you
a lot
much
for Yaching.
Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Sunday. I'm available on YouTube Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Podcasts. Ciao.
Ciao.